Friedman Dyson said it, and so did Schrödinger say that consciousness is in the universe. Max Planck said that mind is the matrix of matter. I could go on and on about the pioneers of the early physics, the quantum physics, who were compelled to include consciousness as a fundamental aspect of reality. Consciousness is the white elephant in the room. You require consciousness to come up with a theory. You require consciousness to design an experiment. You require consciousness to make an observation. Science is the offspring of consciousness. It is the product of consciousness. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say here is very clearly that there's no argument about the fact that evolutionary biology explains everything about the species going from one species to another. But if you want to understand science in its totality, you have to bring consciousness into the equation, because as we currently practice science, it's based on what we call a subject-object split. There's an observer involved in every observation. Science doesn't ask who the observer is, who's the observing self, where is the observing self. But in the absence of the observing self, there wouldn't be any observation and there wouldn't be any science. The observing self cannot be glimpsed by science and scientific methodology because it happens to be the observer. The observer cannot be observed. And that's where spirituality comes in. If you define spirituality as self-awareness, only consciousness can know consciousness. Only consciousness can explain consciousness. Only consciousness can understand consciousness. Any scientific understanding of consciousness through looking at the brain is at best inferential. You're looking at correlations of experiences in consciousness through objective means. So I think science is incomplete as a way of understanding fundamental reality. It's based on a fragmented view of reality. Subject-object split. Nature is one. The universe includes observers, modes of observation, and objects that are observed. So science, because it's fragmented, like religion, which has been fragmented, is capable of creating diabolical technologies. Everything that is wrong today in the world, today in the world, from global warming to biological warfare to mechanized death to eco-destruction to the extinction of species, is because science has evolved without the evolution of spirituality.
Thank you.
Spirituality
makes
science
complete.
Now,
okay. Well, I will have a few questions from... Please.
I shall not make an argument ad hominem. My argument is ad bullshitem.
Okay. You're violating all the rules of logic.
Of course we need to understand consciousness. Of course consciousness is vital to everything we do. Consciousness is something we are all aware of, is something profoundly difficult to understand. It's something that science desperately needs to understand. That we can surely agree upon. That does not mean the universe is conscious. That does not mean any of the things you've just said. It means that consciousness is a subject which is worthy of scientific exploration. Proper scientific exploration, which means understanding consciousness in terms of nervous systems. Possibly in the future in terms of computers, because it's conceivable that computing machines may reach the stage of complexity and organization that they too will experience subjective consciousness. But whatever experiences subjective consciousness is going to be complicated, is going to be a very large organization of lots of small parts interacting together in very complex ways. An atom will never be conscious, nor will a single cell.
So may I ask you a question? Have you ever engaged in self-reflection or self-awareness? Have you ever experienced transcendence? Have you ever questioned if perceptual reality is different from fundamental reality? Have you ever questioned the idea that science does not examine reality but creates models of reality? Have you ever thought that with computers will explain consciousness, have you ever thought who will design those computers and where will those computers be conceived and constructed? If you have never experienced a fundamental, unique experience that has existed throughout history, through antiquity, it's called transcendence. It's experiencing the self. And it's the knowingness that the self of the individual is the self of the universe. I'm not talking this, creating this language by myself. This is the perennial philosophy that Aldous Huxley spoke about. It's what Gottfried Leibniz spoke about. The sages of the Upanishads spoke about. The transcendentalists like Emerson and Thoreau spoke about. But if you have never had the experience of what people call non-symbolic awareness,
we have your question.
You have no
what
right
about
to comment on science being a complete
Deepak.
way to understand reality.
Okay, the question is then.
I have experienced plenty of things which could be called transcendental. I've experienced the feeling of almost mystical wonder that I get when I look up at the stars, look up at the Milky Way, contemplate the galaxies receding from us, listen to a Schubert quintet, read a sonnet of Shakespeare. These are all things which only a human mind is capable of doing.
So may I ask you? Okay, sorry.
Only a human mind is capable of doing that. And a human mind is capable of doing those things because the human mind has been put together in the brain as a highly complicated organization that has evolved over some 4 billion years of evolution, putting together nervous systems. It is a stunning achievement of evolution to have put together the human brain that is capable of being moved by such things. I yield to no one in my capacity to be moved by what you call the transcendental. What I do not do, however, is to indulge in mystical nonsense about it being there before there were brains or the equivalent of brains.
Wow. Okay, now, 1 second.
I want to ask him
You
one
have the question.
Okay. So I'm gonna.
Okay.
I understand that you've had those wonderful experiences. Have you had the experience of gratitude? Have you experienced epistemological humility? Have you experienced reverence for life and for existence? And if so, was it your neural networks manufacturing those experiences, neurochemicals manufacturing their experiences, or was there a deeper, intelligent, organizing consciousness that was influencing the behavior of those neural networks?
How much deeper do you want? How much deeper do you want?
Answer me, sir. Have you experienced reverence?
You have asked me, have I experienced gratitude? I experience gratitude to nothing in particular, but I feel gratitude. I feel all those things that you say. And I do not yield to you in my feeling of the depth of which it is, the depth of understanding that we have yet to fathom, yet to plumb, in order to understand what's going on inside the human brain.
Who's
boggles
we?
my
Who's
mind.
we? Who's we?
The scientific community.
The scientific community.
Yes.
Driven by mechanistic neural networks and chemicals?
Yes, and let's belittle mechanistic neural networks and chemicals. They are
Well,
very,
then tell
very
me how they produce consciousness.
I don't know. That's why we're working on it. You don't know either.
No, wait. You say you don't know, but you totally dismiss mystical experiences or experiences that have existed for thousands of years, subjective but nevertheless symbolically present in every tradition of the world, where people have experienced what I would call non-symbolic awareness, non-dual awareness, subject-object confluence, unity consciousness. You totally dismiss this because it doesn't fit your scientific worldview.
I don't dismiss it for one moment. I don't dismiss it. I want to explain it. I
Who
want
wants to explain it? A
Just
neurochemical?
let him finish.
I want to explain these experiences.
Who's I?
I want science to explain it.
When you say I, who do you mean by I?
Science, in this case.
So I is science.
No. That's just a dishonest. That's dishonest.
It's
Please.
I, as a scientist,